Why should outsiders mine our gold while our people starve? This wasn't just a rhetorical question. It was a thunderclap that announced the arrival of Captain Ibrahim Traoré on the West African stage. His 2022 coup in Burkina Faso was more than just a mere change of guard. It was a defiant roar against decades of perceived neocolonial resource control. Traoré, a figure often draped in the revolutionary mantle of Thomas Sankara, swiftly moved to dismantle the old order, particularly within the lucrative gold mining sector. His government's bold declarations on gold ownership and the subsequent revocation of foreign mining licensing sent shockwaves across the continent and beyond. It was a clear, unambiguous signal. Burkina Faso would no longer be a silent spectator to the plunder of its own riches. According to BBC Africa, Burkina Faso's nationalization efforts were framed as a necessary step to reclaim economic sovereignty and redirect wealth towards national development, a stark contrast to the previous dependency on French economic influence. This move resonated deeply with a populace tired of seeing their nation's vast mineral wealth primarily benefit foreign entities. Traoré's actions were not merely economic policy adjustments, they were ideological statements, positioning him as a new icon of Pan-African resistance. He dared to ask, and then to answer a question that many African nations had long whispered but never fully confronted. How can a nation be truly sovereign if it does not control its own resources? His actions were a stark reminder that true liberation extends beyond lowering of one flag and the raising of another. It demands control over the very earth beneath one's feet. But this was more than a domestic revolution. It sparked something far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. How can the richest gold nation in Africa still rely on foreign middlemen to trade its gold? This is the paradox that has long defined Ghana's position as a continental powerhouse in gold production. Despite its vast reserves and a storied history intertwined with the precious metal, Ghana has struggled to assert full sovereignty over its small-scale mining sector, notoriously known as galamsey. This struggle is largely due to entrenched post-colonial trade structures that have favored foreign intermediaries. The rise of foreign traders, predominantly Chinese, Indian, and Lebanese nationals, in the small-scale mining gold buying ecosystem has created a complex web of economic dependencies and often illicit activities. These foreign entities often operate outside formal regulatory frameworks, facilitating gold smuggling and contributing to widespread environmental degradation. The Ghanaian government for years appeared caught in a perpetual cycle of attempting to curb these illegal operations with limited success. A Reuters report confirmed that Ghana loses substantial revenue annually due to rampant gold smuggling, a drain on the nation's treasury that directly impacts development initiatives. The visual evidence is chilling. Drone shots reveal vast swaths of once pristine landscape scared by illegal mining. Rivers choke with mercury and other pollutants, an entire ecosystem irrevocably damaged. While Ghana boasts impressive gold production figures, the benefits have too often bypassed the local populace, flowing instead into the pockets of foreign traders and their local collaborators. It's a painful reminder that even after decades of independence, the ghost of colonial exploitation continued to haunt the nation's resource management. Yet, a quiet shift began, and it bore the fingerprints of Burkina Faso's bold new order. Power doesn't just spread by armies, it's spread by ideas. The audacious move made by Captain Ibrahim Traoré in Ouagadougou began to send ripple across West Africa, and nowhere where these echoes felt more profoundly than the neighboring Ghana. This influence wasn't about formal alliances or diplomatic overtures. It was a subtle yet powerful dissemination of nationalistic and pan-Africanist sentiment. Ghanaian media and public discourse increasingly turned towards Burkina Faso, admiring Traoré's decisive reforms and his unwavering stance against external economic control. Analysts, both on air and in print, began drawing direct parallels, referencing Traoré's fiery rhetoric as a powerful inspiration for Ghanaian policymakers grappling with similar challenges in their own gold sector. The conversations in Ghana shifted, moving beyond the technicalities of mining regulations to the broader philosophical question of national ownership and self-determination. Among Ghana's youth and growing segments of its political class, a renewed sense of Pan-African identity began to coalesce, energized by the clear, unapologetic actions of Burkina Faso. According to Africa News, Traoré's direct statement about nationalizing resources and empowering his people triggered widespread regional debate, forcing leaders to confront uncomfortable truths about their own economic policies. Social media became a vibrant forum where Traoré's popularity soared, with many Ghanaians sharing his speeches and advocating for similar decisive actions at home. News panels juxtaposed by seemingly meek approach of Accra with the bold strides of Ouagadougou, intensifying public pressure on the Ghanaian government. It was a growing realization that if Burkina Faso, a nation with fewer resources, could take such a stand, why couldn't Ghana, Africa's gold king? Then came the real turning point, a Ghanaian law that stunned foreign traders overnight. In less than 30 days, foreign gold dealers were told, "Get out." This was a stark, almost unbelievable directive issued by the Ghanaian government in April 2025, marking a pivotal moment in the nation's economic history. Ghana had finally unleashed its own Traoré Effect, introducing a policy shift that sent shockwaves through the small-scale gold trading sector. The centerpiece of this transformation was the creation of the Ghana Gold Board, or Gold Board, an audacious move that effectively established a state monopoly over all small-scale gold trading. Simultaneously, and perhaps even more controversially, all existing trade licenses held by foreign intermediaries in the artisanal and small-scale mining sector were immediately revoked. The motivations behind this drastic centralization of gold buying and exporting were clear and unapologetic. Official rhetoric centered on the urgent need to combat pervasive gold smuggling, curb foreign exploitation that had held the nation dry, and significantly bolster Ghana's national reserve. It was a declaration of economic war against illicit practices that had festered for decades. According to Business Insider Africa, early export data and revenue estimates following Gold Board's establishment indicated a significant potential for increased state earnings and a more transparent value chain. Images of press conferences, official gazettes outlining the new regulations, and the sudden cessation of bustling foreign-dominated gold markets painted a vivid picture of this seismic shift. The streets of traditional gold trading hubs, once teeming with diverse foreign buyers, now bore a different, distinctively Ghanaian character. The cedi, the national currency, showed early signs of strengthening, a direct reflection of renewed confidence in the nation's control over its most valuable exports. But this wasn't just economic housekeeping. It was a quiet confrontation with global power. When a nation reclaims its gold, the empire always notices. Ghana's decisive move to expel foreign gold traders and establish a state monopoly over a small-scale gold sector was not merely an internal economic adjustment. It was a geopolitical statement with far-reaching implications. The ripple effects were immediate and palpable. Foreign embassies in Accra, particularly those representing nations whose citizens had been deeply involved in Ghana's ASM sector, expressed varying degrees of concern, ranging from polite inquiries to veiled warnings about potential impact on bilateral trade relations. Countries like China and India, whose nationals had established extensive networks within Ghana's gold industry, found themselves in a sudden and unexpected predicament. Their initial responses were a mix of diplomatic maneuvering and attempts to understand the new regulatory landscape. This situation mirrored, in an uncanny way, the Western pushback against Traoré's gold policies in Burkina Faso. While the methods of engagement differed, less overt condemnation, more subtle pressure, the underlying message from powerful global players remained consistent. Resource nationalism, particularly in vital sectors like gold, was seen as a challenge to establish global economic order. Reports by AFP suggested increased diplomatic activity and expression of investor concerns regarding the practicability of Ghanaian economic policy. Footage of foreign nationals reacting to the sudden policy shift, their business abruptly disrupted, highlighted the human and economic dimension of this confrontation. International business councils issued cautious warnings, and animated maps illustrate shifts in foreign investment flows began to appear in global financial news. This wasn't just about gold, it was about the assertion of national sovereignty in a world accustomed to dictating the terms of resource extraction. As Ghana tightened its grip on gold, a new question emerged: who's next? First, it was Burkina Faso, then Ghana. Will Nigeria be next? The actions of Ouagadougou and Accra have ignited a powerful regional wave of economic sovereignty, sweeping through West Africa, transcending the traditional distinction between military juntas and constitutional democracies. Mali and Niger, both currently under military rule, have already embarked on similar mining reforms, mirroring Traoré's bold step to assert greater national control over their mineral wealth. Their experiences, often met with Western sanctions and diplomatic isolation, have only hardened their resolve, demonstrating a shared commitment to resource reclamation. But the influence of this Traoré effect isn't confined to nations led by military strongmen. Civic movements across West Africa, particularly in economic giants like Nigeria and Senegal, are increasingly vocal in their demands for greater resource control. These movements, often fueled by frustrated youths and resurgent Pan-Africanist consciousness, are putting immense pressure on their respective governments to emulate the decisive actions seen in Burkina Faso and Ghana. It's a powerful idea. If a nation can control its gold, it can control its destiny. According to a report, recent data on regional military and economic trends suggest a notable increase in resource nationalism and a growing assertiveness from West African nations in their dealings with former colonial powers and multinational corporations. The visual landscape is changing too. Pan-African protest marches are becoming more frequent. Clips of West African leaders making sovereignty statements resonate widely, and youth activism videos demanding economic justice are gaining traction. ECOWAS maps depicting the region's vast gold belt now carry an added layer of political significance, highlighting zones of potential future confrontations over resource control. This isn't just about leaders, it's about fundamental shift in the collective consciousness of a continent. But is this resurgence of African sovereignty sustainable, or just a new chapter in an old struggle? They took the gold, left the chains. Now, Africa wants both back. These sentiments encapsulate the profound significance of the events unfolding across West Africa. The actions initiated by Ibrahim Traoré and subsequently embraced by Ghana are not isolated incidents. They are integral parts of what many are now calling Africa's second liberation. The first liberation secured flag independence, a crucial but ultimately incomplete step. This second liberation is about economic decolonization, a determined struggle to finally ensure that Africa's vast natural resources serve the welfare and aspiration of its own people, rather than perpetually enriching foreign powers. For too long, the continent has witnessed a paradox: immense wealth beneath its soil, yet persistent poverty above it. The current wave of resource nationalism, whether driven by military leaders or democratic government responding to public pressure, is a courageous attempt to rectify this historical injustice. The question remains: can gold finally serve Africans, becoming a true catalyst for development and prosperity, or will the entrenched global system reassert its control, finding new ways to exploit and perpetuate dependency? The path is fraught with risk, demanding immense courage and unwavering clarity from African leaders and citizens alike. Challenging global power structures, especially those rooted in centuries of colonial exploitation, is never easy. Yet, the current momentum offers a cautious but hopeful vision: a sovereign, unified Africa, finally in control of its destiny, using its gold not just to glitter, but to build a truly liberated future. This is Frontline Africa. If you value truth unfiltered and power reframed from an African lens, subscribe, like, and drop your thoughts. I am Ezekiel Enejeta. See you in the next one.